Hello?
Good morning.
Why are you calling me at 6 a.m., you idiot?
Mate, I haven't been to sleep. I came across
You haven't been up this early since, like, I don't know, you're about 30.
I got on this Facebook marketplace last night and I found something I need you to go and collect for me.
What is it?
It's a pair of davits for the Catamaran.
Right.
Do you know what davits are?
Have it.
Do you know what they are?
No?
They're like these huge fiberglass things that I'm going to have to make if I don't pick these up. And I'm only going to get one shot at this. I'm probably the only guy in Australia that's going to get a set of davits at 6 a.m. in the morning. But I need you to zip down to the bag.
You're not getting anything. It sounds like I'm getting it.
Yeah. I actually need you to go and pick them up for me. That'd be awesome. Can you zip down to the bank, get $200 out of the bank, and zip over and see this lady that I've arranged for you to go and see? Sorry, mate.
Appreciate it.
This is the price you pay for love.
Yeah, okay. It'll cost you a case of beer. I'll go get them.
Okay, so if you can grab them, I'd suggest you don't take Veronica with you in the car because they may not fit, or she may not fit. But it's at Miranda. It's only 500 metres from you. Hopefully you can go and find them. You all right with that?
Yeah. This reminds me of those conversations we used to have as a kid. It's only 2 kayaks you've got to move. It'll be fine. I feel like this is like a 2-hour endeavour you've just set me up for, but thank you.
Well,
I'll go get them. It's a case of beer.
You can handle it.
All right.
All right, thanks.
All right, I'll chat to you later. I'll let you know how I go.
Go and get some cash out and do it. Thanks, buddy. Catch ya. See ya.
So, bye.
Bye. G'day everyone, welcome to Life on the Hulls, and I'm a very happy boy. I was perusing Facebook Marketplace the other night and came across these. At about 1 a.m. I discovered these on Facebook. So a week later, I go and pick them up, and they're great. They're gonna need a bit of a clean up and a bit of a polish, but I'm pretty excited about having these because this is gonna take about 3 or 4 weeks work out of my schedule. And quite frankly, I was going to put a nice big solar arch on the top of the boat anyway, and I wasn't inclined to hang the tender off it, although it does look neat and super modern. These will fit perfectly into the style of my boat, and basically they are going to bolt onto the back of our boat and keep our tender nice and high. And quite frankly, I like the look of traditional davits, not the big stainless arches, although I'm going to have one of those eventually. This will get me out of trouble initially, and then I can build my arch separately, and then eventually this will all be integrated into the boat, and they are absolutely fantastic. There's a bit of a story to them, and that's going to come a bit later on, but to score a set of davits for $200, can you believe it? I just can't believe it. Been up working on the sugar scoop. Now I have a mould for the stairs on the back of the sugar scoop, and about 4 years ago I actually polished it up and got it all ready to lay up and thought, oh yeah, that's good, that's one done. And then you know, over the years it's collected dust, and then I had Janet spend a considerable amount of time polishing it again, and it's absolutely beautiful. It's just over here to my right. However, the extension I've done, I initially thought I'm going to utilise the stair mould that basically went with the first version of the cap that didn't have an extension on it. Now, I've actually come to the conclusion, and it's been a lot of thinking going to this, that I'm better off using flat sheet, laying it up at the desired laminate that I want for this particular stairs, and then building the steps in pieces and laminating it all together. And there's going to be a large hatch in this top stair tread to allow me access into my rudder and anything else that I choose to put into this cavity. And certainly I'm trying to maintain the structural and safety integrity of the rear end of the boat. I really like the idea of having a completely self-contained crash bulkhead, which is obviously the stairs on a catamaran. I know a lot of them do. When you open up that back hatch, basically the whole engine room's exposed, whereas in my boat it's not. Because I have a shaft drive, my motors are further towards the bow than they are normally on a catamaran these days. So I'm actually lucky enough to have a very solid crash bulkhead in the stern of the boat. Now, having said that, I need to develop the stair treads, and 2 sheets of this H80 foam with the desired laminate on it that I intend to put on it, which will be probably 300, 600 double bias, 300, 600 double bias, and that'll be the initial laminate, and then it's all going to be tabbed and filleted together. So that's pretty substantial. That's pretty much what the whole deck is. Plus I'll be putting structure in underneath. So what I've done is I've tried to work out the economy of trying to use 2 sheets to do the entire thing, and I think I've cracked it. What I've actually done here is I've actually got the large top step here and the second stair tread here. Basically I can get 2 of these second steps out of this one and a large one and one of the risers out of the other sheet. So I think I'm pretty much on the money if I can do it this way, and that way I'll at least have the ability to fabricate these pretty quickly. All I have to do is lay those sheets up, cut them, and I can get them pretty much in together over the next 3 or 4 days. And that's amazing, because it's going to take me at least 3 or 4 days to make one set of stairs on a mould. However, there'll be a lot of retrofitting and cutting and chopping once it's back up there, but it will be exactly the same on both sides and will minimise a lot of the modifications that are going to be required. So now you'll notice here I have a radius around the front. Now this would be the second step. Sorry about the light flickering, guys. But the way I've done that is with a string line and the center point mounted right back here on this clamp. And this string line feeds out and starts at the beginning point of the stair tread, and then we'll basically sweep an arc across and join to the other side, and that means that I've got a consistent radius. It's 100 millimeters at the center, but it tapers out, and that way I get 4 very nice curved stair treads, and will really provide me with a beautiful look. So with that stair form now, I'm going to be able to use this part here as one of the risers. Now they're going to have to be curved because they need to match the contour of this step. Very, very important I get all these things in place, and what I've got here I think really is the perfect solution. Rather than using that mold and having to go and retro change that mold, I've got a brilliant thing here. This top step is likely to have a hatch in it so that I can then access my rudder system below. So yeah, lots of thinking, not a lot of doing, a lot of thinking. And I really do need to see a template before I go and cut up, you know, 400 bucks worth of foam. I'm better off to just make a template and go up and reassure myself that that's exactly what needs to happen. And it is a difficult thing to conceptualize things in front of you and then what actually occurs. So always template. It's a challenge, but what it does is it just reaffirms in your mind, and you don't throw away money you don't need to spend. So I'm using a couple of bits of core fluid and MDF that I've got here. I'm now going to try and build up the courage to go home and break it to Janet that I'm not going to use that stair mould. She's going to be gutted because she's put so much work into it, and honestly the thing's amazing. So whoever buys the mould is going to have a freshly polished back stair mould with which to do with whatever they like, and I'm a bit gutted that I'm not going to use it. But what I've come up with is down here I've made a template, and it has given me a good feel for how this thing's going to look, and I'll just run you through that now. So walking out through the back transom here, as you can see, we've got copious amounts of stair width. I mean, almost too much. This is certainly not how it's going to look eventually, but it is giving me a good feel for how these stairs will work. Obviously I'm not going to walk on them because it's only core flute, but that back step there is massive. It's almost as big as the bottom dock. I'm going to have to work out how to tie this all in. I'm not inclined to have the sides anymore. I'm inclined to cut them away so that it does look a little bit more presentable. I may have to put some sort of a curve in here just to make it look right, but I like the idea of it. I like the size of it. This will have a sweeping curve similar to this running down the inside there, and I'll do that out of foam as well. Then we'll just be able to spray the whole thing up at once and try to work out how I'm going to integrate it into this. I do really want to try to have them sloping backwards slightly so that water will run off them, any rain or anything. But anyway, that's looking, well, it's not looking good, but it's certainly given me a bit of a concept as to how I'm going to go forward with this project.
Now, while I deliberate on this a little, I'm going to move on to an area inside the saloon to give me time to think about how I'm going to construct this and integrate it all. I'm often better to walk away from a major mod like this and really think about the consequences of my actions and the resultant effort and work that's going to be required to enact this whole thing. Rushing ahead can often be counterproductive, and I like to give this a serious thought before I go ahead.
Been working pretty hard down in this area, down in here, getting firstly the foam sheet laminated, because I've got to make every single sheet to fit in here. I'm not just going to put foam in and then laminate it. I'm better off to laminate it, and then it's simply a matter of tabbing it in. I could just put in the flat sheet and then lay the clots and get it all scheduled in, and but that would actually create a lot more work. So these shelves here, although they're not quite level yet, I'm still working on blocking them in. I'm just putting in some composite angle. That's the internal shelving of our pantry cupboard that is going to sort of house all of our bits and pieces and hopefully lightweight stuff for the galley, which is on the other side. We needed a cupboard somewhere that was reasonably accessible outside of a cabin. We don't want to be waking people up in the middle of the night just to get a can of baked beans, do we? So over the last couple of weeks, in amongst a whole lot of other jobs, I've spent a lot of time fabricating all of the parts required for all of these robes, and I intend to just spend a couple of days glassing them all in. I've got the ones on the port side here and the ones on the starboard side in the stern cabin to tab them in. I didn't want to put anything in too permanent because I've got to work out where all of my electrical conduits are down through this section here. This is the helm up here, so there's going to be hydraulic lines running down through here. There's also going to be quite a lot of electrics that are going to disappear into this cabinetry I'm making here, and I'm just trying to think that right out, whether I put in conduits or just have simple holes where I can feed lines through. Will be a matter of how I work it out eventually, but for now I'm just basically hot gluing and putting in a couple of composite angles just to get these shelves in place. So I've got all of these parts fabricated, including where the fridge is going to sit, and the refrigerator is going to sit on a kickboard, a raised kickboard here, so that I've got access in underneath it for wiring and for ventilation. Obviously we want to be able to air cool this area as well. We don't want too much heat forming in this particular area, particularly if we're going to have food and a refrigerator here. And because the fridge is going to sit at this level here, I don't need to put a full piece in here, which would be just a waste of foam. I intend to leave a hole underneath the fridge to allow for ventilation. So important. So I will have these ports here and here, and then we'll have another shelf on the top here. Righto, so I've got a bag of Techniglue here. I'm just going to tack these in. I don't want to be gluing them entirely because firstly I can't glue them against that back wall there. I don't want to glue into that because I want to be able to remove that. I also am going to cut out a section of this, so I don't want to glue into that either. I intend to use that face possibly as a door. And down in there, what I don't want to be doing is gluing it to the face on the other side there. That's actually rebaited there because I'm going to put a fiddle on there. So there's a lot of places I can glue it, but I have to be very careful how I do this, because I don't want to glue it to something I need to later remove. You'll notice I've left the peel ply on that back part just for that reason, just in case we end up with any epoxy over there. Don't want to have to cut that out at a later date. I'll get these ones in place. I've also put some masking tape underneath just to stop any overfill or any overflow. And just by gluing this in, I can get a really good solid base with which to do the tabbing and the filleting. Alright, so they're now tacked in. I'm going to leave them. The top one's not. I can actually remove that, and then I can get in to tab the top of this, no problem. I don't want any sort of awkward tabbing, which is going to be through this door. I've also only tabbed the corners of this because there's going to be a door in this side here allowing access into here, so I don't want to tab the whole thing. I only want to tab the very edges. And now it's time to put in this floor piece. Now if I need to get any hoses or anything through here, I need to be able to make sure that I can get a hole saw in there. So I'm using a small drill with a hole saw, or I can use my multi-tool and cut out sections of foam required for the actual conduiting of the hoses. So I need to be able to make sure I just tab it all the way along here. I don't want it sticking to the composite angle underneath. And then along here to about here. I don't want it sticking to the composite angle here. And then further over, and then tie it into this module here along the bottom, because this is the bottom of the wardrobe. So I can actually glue all the way along that. And then I can come back and tab the whole thing back together. So yeah, a lot of work to be done in here. It's probably a couple of days work just doing these two wardrobes here, but they're going to be as rock solid and squeak free as ever. So this here is going to be our pantry cupboard. It's quite a deep, unusual shape, but Janet wanted more storage for long range cruising, I guess, for food. So this is going to be a good spot. It's going to be for more lightweight stuff, because we don't want the heavy stuff up high. But yeah, that door is going to be quite a large door, which will give access into this pantry. I'm going to have to cut it out now. It's going to make a hell of a lot of noise. All right, it's time to put this back wall into this cabinet here. I'm going to actually fill it in. I've actually made up a batch of cotton flock and polyester. And this is not a structural wall, so this does not need to be done with vinyl ester or epoxy. I've tacked these in with epoxy, but I'm about to change over to this cotton flock polyester. It's simply a cupboard, but certainly still has to be filleted in correctly. Very, very important we do that, just so we make sure there's no squeaks ever going to happen in this cupboard here. I'm just going to put a slight amount on here, but not a lot, because we're not really worried about this face. We're more worried about the actual fillet. But this will stop any squeaking of the foam in between these shelves. And I'm certainly not going to tuck this top shelf in up here. I'm actually not going to glue that in yet. I want to leave that open because I've got a lot of work to do up here. But yep, we'll whack this piece in now. And we're going to squash a lot of this, but there's only one way to do it, and that's to do it. And as you can see, as I slid it in, I've obviously pushed it out of the way, so I can now backfill this fillet in here. Very important we get a nice neat fillet in all of our cupboards, in all of our robes. Well, there is only so much of that laminating you can watch, guys. So this is all now in. And while I was at it, I decided to tackle these guys. So what I have done, I've actually tabbed in all of the top parts of the shelves, and I'll do the undersides tomorrow. That has 2 layers of 400 double bias and then a layer of my finishing cloth over it. So every single shelf here and compartment is actually tabbed and filleted in place, and it's very, very important because that way we get absolutely no movement and no squeak. Nothing worse than squeak. Now this wall here is still loose, and it's loose for a reason, because I still want to be able to work out how to integrate that into the backside. So I've got quite a lot going on. There will also be some pipes and conduits going down through here that are going to form part of the helm. So this is actually a service cabinet. It will form a pantry, but it also will be an area where I can actually secrete some of my helm controls, including electrics, down into there. But yeah, that's done now. I'm pretty happy with that. That's actually a great result, that wardrobe. And it'll make Janet pretty happy to have all that extra storage there, because we haven't got a great deal in our galley, but it's like a short 6-foot walk to quite considerable storage for an area that would otherwise be pretty useless, you know, in an area in the staircase. But yeah, pretty happy with that. All right, now that I've got these shelves and they're actually tabbed and filleted in place, and I've just given them a light sand, I'm able to put this other face in. And this part here is going to go in here. This is actually the face, and there will be an opening below here so I can access the conduits and pulling wiring and such like through. Just got another project on the go outside at the moment in the sugar scoops, but what I'm going to do is basically get this part in, and then I can start to work on the tabbing to complete the inside of the pantry, and then I'll be able to start to work on getting the inside of that finished as well. So there's plenty going on here.